Our help is in the name of the Lord, who is the maker of heaven and earth. Amen. Good morning, and thank you for coming out on this beautiful Memorial Day weekend. I was half tempted to send Autumn into church this morning and put a new sign up out front that said, "Church closed due to weather." But I realize that it's important for us to come together and worship and to give thanks, especially on a day before a holiday that is so solemn for our country. I pray that you would take some time, not only today, but also tomorrow, just to kneel before the Lord and give thanks for those who have given all that they could for the sake of our nation. Really glad that Bronwyn is here with us today. Bronwyn is here to do, she's not only our church office administrator, she's also, I believe, a deacon at your church. Is that correct? No? Okay. But she's an author. She is an author, and she's written a book called Confessions of a First-Time Chicken Farmer. And so you're invited to stick around for a reading of Confessions of a First-Time Chicken Farmer. Allison has brought chicken salad sandwiches, egg salad sandwiches, and for dessert, Peeps. So it's all good theming. Thank you. And several other people contributed. Thank you, Allison. Very good. Eric, would you lead us in our opening prayer?
There is no greater love, O Lord, than for someone to lay down their life for a friend. We remember those who lost their lives under the banner of our nation, serving both just and unjust causes. In your blessed mercy, Lord, remember their willingness to go into harm's way for the love of nation and to honor their vows. These thousands and 10,000s, though unknown to us, have been friend to us. May we honor their service with gratitude. Amen. May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face shine upon us, that your way may be known upon earth, your saving power among all nations. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you.
So without question, this is a story about Lydia. Lydia, the seller of purple, who's gathered there by the river, who hears Paul preaching and then decides that she's going to be baptized in her household as well. Which is an interesting thing from a theological standpoint, because here you have a person who listens to someone preach the gospel, receives it and is baptized, and then she gathers up her household, who had not yet heard the gospel, and has them baptized. And this has profound implications on stuff that I love to talk about, like soteriology, or how we're saved, and the efficacy of the sacraments, and ecclesiology, and how we form community, and missiology, and how we go out and give community, and I'd be yawning too if I started talking about that this morning. That's not, I think, what we need to hear today, actually. I think we need to think a little bit more just about what gets Paul and his companions in front of Lydia in the first place. His companions, by the way, are Luke and Timothy. I like how you have that little change of pronouns in the reading where it says that Paul had a vision while he was sleeping, another dream, right? And a man from Macedonia is there. He says, "Come to Macedonia and help us." And then it says, "And so we tried immediately to go across to there." They went from Troas to Samothrace to some other place to Philippi, through Thessaloniki. And it happened in a dream. It happened in a dream. Last week there was a dream too. There were a couple of dreams. The story that I read to the kids today, there was a dream, wasn't there? The dream came to the guy named Ananias. And last week's dream came to Paul and then to another guy who was a Gentile in town, said, "Go invite him over for dinner." And today there's this dream, a Macedonian guy, "Come to Macedonia and help us." And it's amazing how these dreams can change things. This, by the way, the trip they took was never going to be a direct route. If you were to take a look at an atlas to figure out where all these towns are, you would see that they're kind of tucked up into the northeastern corner of the Mediterranean basin. And so, wait, am I drawing it from the right perspective? Hang on. Yep, that way. Okay. So if you were to try to go directly from Troas to Philippi by boat, it would take you right through the Archipelagos Islands. And the archipelago is like impossible to navigate. It's really hard to navigate today, even with all the modern equipment that we have in the GPS and the mapping, because there are hundreds of little islands in there and thousands of outcroppings just below the surface of the water. Anybody that would try to go directly from Samothrace to Philippi would wind up most likely getting wrecked and losing their ship. So the only way that you could get there is not a direct route. It's kind of circuitous. It takes you from here and you go port hopping. Because the smart thing to do is just kind of hug the shoreline where you think it's safe. And you go from this port to this port to this port to this port to this port. And every time you go from one port to the other, you have to disembark, and then you have to find somebody to take you on passage to the next place. And it takes time, and it takes money, and this trip wasn't planned at all. Not at all. You know, I had a friend named Anders Tormund. Anders being the brother of a Danish foreign exchange student we had in our house, Enya. And Anders had this great idea to do right after he graduated. Now, I did not tell Mariah this idea, who's going to be graduating on Tuesday, because I didn't want her to think that this was a good thing to do. So Mariah, plug your ears and don't listen to this story. What Anders did is he got together with two of his friends, and they bought plane tickets. They bought tickets from Denmark to Newark International Airport, and then 3 months later, they had tickets going from San Francisco back to Denmark. They showed up on American soil with all of $4,000 between them and 3 months to figure out how to get from here to there. And that trip was planned better than Paul and Luke and Timothy's trip. I mean, did they even know where they were going? Come to Macedonia. Well, Macedonia is big. Macedonia is like the size of New Jersey. It'd be like saying, hey, meet me in Jersey. And then I'd go someplace in Jersey and expect you to find me there. And do they even know who they're looking for? And where did they get the money for the trip anyway? They get this call, and they respond to the call, and they don't even know what they're doing. It's about the least Presbyterian thing I think I've ever read. This is not decent and in order. Presbyterians, if we got a call that said, come to Macedonia and help us, we would have questions, wouldn't we? Well, who is the us that we need to help? And where are we going to go and who are we going to meet when we get there? And are my expenses going to be paid? And what do you need help with exactly? Can I bring anything with me, or do I need to bring any particular people with me? And when I get there, what are your preferred outcomes for my trip there? And how long do you think it'll take? And when do I get home? And on and on and on. We'd want to know all these things and consult with a travel agent and try to find the best deals so we could get to D. This isn't at all the kind of trip that Paul takes. So they do their port hopping, and they get to Thessaloniki, which is a great port city on the eastern end of Macedonia. And it's also a really fun word to say. Just say it with me. Thessaloniki. Isn't that fun? You can't say that word without smiling. You really can't. Well, maybe you can if you really try. Go, Thessaloniki, like that if you wanted to. But it's a really fun word to say. And so they get to Thessaloniki, and that's Macedonia. And I wonder if they got off the boat expecting a welcoming committee. Hi, I'm Paul, and here are my friends, Timothy and Luke. We have come because we were beckoned in a dream. We are here to help you. Crickets. Nothing. Why would they decide to leave Thessaloniki and walk a day's journey up to Philippi? I have no idea. And when they get up there to Philippi, I wonder if they walk into Philippi and they're looking around for the person that they're supposed to help. I wonder if while they were on the boat, they're Paul and saying, okay, what did the guy look like in the dream? Let's draw a sketch of the guy. Did he have hair? Did he have a beard? What color were his eyes? And then go around in Philippi and Thessaloniki and say, have you seen this person? He wants us to help him. Have you seen this person? We're looking for this person. Anybody see this person? Nope, they didn't do that either. They just head up to Philippi, and then they're there for a few days. And you got to wonder, at what point were they thinking, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Nobody is coming to us for help. Maybe it's time that we went home. This is so not Presbyterian. They decide one day to just go out of the city and go over to the river, and they find Lydia, and they preach the gospel to her. And Lydia receives it and is baptized and has her household baptized. And now I think I know why God didn't tell them where they were going or what they were to do. Because if God had said to them, I want you to find a woman in Philippi who sells purple, and I want you to share the gospel with her and do what she requests. I think that if God had told them that, then their trip would have been far more direct. They wouldn't have spent any time figuring out the ways and the customs of the area that they were in. And then when they got to meet Lydia, they would have said, okay, we did it, and then turn around and go home. God left it wide open for them. And thank God that God did that, because they went from there to create one of Paul's most impressive missionary journeys, where he sets up the church in Thessaloniki. He sets up the church in Philippi. He sets up the church in Galatia. He sets up the church in Colossae and in Corinth. And not only does he set these churches up, but he then writes letters to them, which make up the bulk of the letters that we have in our own Gospels, in our own New Testament. The first and the second letter to the Thessalonians, and the letter to the church of the Philippians, and Galatians, and Ephesians, and Colossians, and 1st and 2nd Corinthians are all letters Paul wrote to these churches that he started because he had a wide open dream with no instruction that just said, go to Macedonia and help us. Not every call has to be defined by a straight line with a certain set parameter for what you are to do and when you're to start and when it's going to end. Discipleship is circuitous. Discipleship is time-consuming. Discipleship is costly. Discipleship can lead you to follow Jesus into doing nothing and waiting and lingering for a time before a single opportunity opens up before you. There has to be a willingness within discipleship to be available to God wherever you are, whenever God needs you. And so if discipleship is a circuitous route with wandering and lingering and expenses that don't always seem to fit into the big idea, then the institution that's responsible for raising disciples needs to let people know that this most non-Presbyterian way of being really is okay. Seemingly aimless journeys are okay. Expenses that aren't necessarily budgeted are okay. Heading off in a nebulous direction with no specific plan, save that we respond to God's lead, is okay. It doesn't feel okay. I don't want that. And you don't want that either. You want to know, where are we going? What are we doing? What do we have to do to get there? How much is it going to cost to get it done? What are the measurable outcomes to make sure that it gets there? How can we be sure that we're actually going to get these things done? You want to know what all these things are before we embark on the journey. I want to know what all those things are before we embark on the journey. But man, that's not what discipleship is. Woman, that's not what discipleship is. Discipleship isn't always that clear-cut. Doing God's mission is not always that clear-cut. Type A folks, business-minded folks, people who are trying to get the greatest efficiency and greatest productivity out of things do not like this call to mission. It is far more Presbyterian to plan the work and work the plan. How many people have ever heard that one before? Plan the work and work the plan. We'd rather have the clear start and end date, a clear goal, concise objectives, clearly defined expectations, a delineated expense account, and a path for feedback and accountability before we even get going on anything. And God gave Paul none of that. Paul just remained open to go where God led. To follow God in this way requires a few things. It requires flexibility. It requires trust. It's not about trying, it's about trusting, right? Didn't I read that somewhere today? Didn't I? It's not about trying, it's about trusting. Yeah. It requires a certain amount of nimbleness and a willingness for adventure. Oh Lord, as you plan to transform how we think about being a church, give us Presbyterians the courage to be less Presbyterian about it.